This is Will Spencer from the Renaissance of Men here in Orlando, Florida with a 21 Summit 2021. This is a panel on women and femininity related to the 22 convention going on just next door. I'm here with Socrates, Alexander Cortez, Pastor Michael Foster, and President Anthony Dream Johnson. And all of us spoke at the 22 convention, and so let's just go down the line, and I'd like each man to say like sort of the topics that you spoke about and how you see it related to femininity today. So let's start with you, Socrates.
I actually spoke about a universal subject of civil resistance, and in particular, the value that women innately have in the act of civil resistance, that because of their gender specific elements of socialization, the empathy, their network and alliance building capabilities, they're uniquely positioned to contribute highly to a non-violent campaign. And that's particularly important when we look at the success ratios associated with campaigns. Is that typically if you have 3.5% of a population, typically you're successful in overturning a government. And if we're looking to institute cultural change, we need higher populations, and women can absolutely not only provide that population number, but actually add significantly to the value of a campaign to achieve those goals. And that's uniquely kind of specifically towards women. And I hope that they are hearing that message. And when I talk about typically in dating relationships where men and women are compatible and complementary, this is completely true in civil resistance campaigns.
Mm-hmm. And just to make sure, you said 3 to 5%. Was that the number?
3 to 5% to overturn a government. I have to believe that it's actually less to change a culture. So, and what's important there is that when you look at normal nonviolent campaigns, most of them are populated by 1.6 of the percentage of the population. So you're already halfway there if you just have a nonviolent campaign. And I think that's going to be enough to actually change society and culture. So the premise is that I think we're already there. We just haven't coalesced.
Mm-hmm. Let's go through each man's speech, and then we'll kick some ideas around. So, Ajax, you want to go next?
Yeah, my speech was generalistic in sort of this advice giving for young women. I mean, if I was to take like a broader meta perspective, it's been very interesting to see probably the past 5 years, whereas the manosphere, obviously content was geared towards men. And there's this constant theme of men growing up with single moms, men without fathers, not having a father figure. But the same thing has happened to women. You know, men are not the only ones that don't have dads. And what I've seen online now the past few years, it's been really uplifting and it's a positive development, is that you have this sort of general awakening of women realizing that, you know what, we've been given very bad advice by society, by our mothers, just by this sort of cultural narrative that, you know, caters to this, you know, global homo kind of story of career, work, you're going to pay taxes. If you can basically contribute to this, you know, capitalist system we live in, like that's how you're a good person. Right. You know, you put off motherhood. You are the most important thing in the universe. Having, you know, children, when that happens, it happens way later. You know, relationships are something that you take seriously in your 30s, not your 20s. And you have a lot of these young women today realizing like we've really been lied to. Because either I've seen relatives do that version of life and it hasn't turned out well, or I've done that version of life and it's made me really unhappy and I'm not fulfilled. And why were we taught these things? You know, like why is this the social order? And so they're looking for their own answers. They're trying to find people, trying to find women that, you know, give a different account, you know, different advice. And most of what they're finding right now is actually men. And it's been really interesting where you have all these women on the periphery of like the male sphere, or they're not really coming for the male advice to learn about men specifically. They're coming because you guys actually give very good paternal advice. Like you're a paternal figure, and your instruction is way better than anything I'm going to find, you know, on the general internet, general web. And they're really listening. They're very receptive. And that's just been really cool. Like I've been surprised at the segment of my audience, which it's probably about 80% men, but that 20%, the rest, it's women. And it's a lot of young women. And if I'm being honest, they're kind of like looking for a dad, big brother. Because they just don't have that in their life. Yeah, it's really made me take a step back and reconsider, you know, like how I present, you know, who I present and who I'm talking to, where, yeah, we can talk all day about how bad it is for men. It's probably arguably worse for women.
In many ways,
you know, because women are also discouraged from listening to men in the first place.
Yep.
You know, like it's a normal thing for a man to listen to a man. Women are actively told basically don't take men seriously at all about anything unless they already agree with everything you think and feel and say. So they put themselves in this very isolated position where they don't know how to take advice even when they need it, and they don't know how to ask questions, but they're unhappy, something's wrong. What do I do?
Mm-hmm. And the feminist ideology really preys on women most of all, right?
Yes, feminism, like, we could go on that for a long time, but it's evolved into like this late stage companion to like global homo capitalism. Mm-hmm. Like it doesn't. No, that's all it is. It doesn't. No, it is because it doesn't. It's not empowering. There's nothing empowering about it.
Yeah.
Like if you look at actual statistics, like let's be objective and use numbers. Like more women are in college. Yes. More women are joining the workforce than men. Yes. More women are getting degrees. Yes. Women are outperforming men in K through 12. Yes. The entire system is oriented towards women. Like you won. Like you got everything you wanted.
Yeah.
So at this point, it's now like, what is it? It's complaints of, I don't know. It's complaining about the
patriarchy.
It's complaining about the heterosexual male patriarchy. Well, I'm uncomfortable. Or you know what? In this particular industry, there's not enough women here. We need more parity here. Mm-hmm. Like you're already making more money. Like you already have all the economic advantages. So now you're looking for grievances.
Well, AJ, it's become about man-spreading, mansplaining, like a litany.
It's become about bullshit. It's about bullshit. Now we're going to complain about your body language. We're going to complain about tone. We're going to complain about the male gaze. We're going to complain that being heterosexual like that's uncomfortable.
Why is James Bond a man? Like that's what now they have to make James Bond a woman. Like this is crazy.
Yeah.
That was personally fucking heartbreaking. I don't want to even talk about that. It hurts me.
Well, I mean, you saw Daniel Craig's whole thing with like, I go to gay clubs because I'm herder, toxic masculinity. Did you see those headlines?
I did.
Yeah.
I'll defend him a little bit.
Okay.
I'll say this because I know guys that grew up in the UK and Britain. And they have a really heavy drinking culture.
Sure.
And fighting is actually a very, very, very common thing. Mm-hmm. Like they're super degenerate that way. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, I have friends that are British, Irish, and like, I kind of understand what he's saying because that's like the thing that you do here as a young guy. You go out, you get really drunk, you vomit, you fight in the street, and it's just like that's what's expected. So,
fair enough.
Yeah.
Well, what'd you talk about at 22?
I've read a lot of books in the men's space. I talked about King, Warrior, Magician, Lover, and in Fire in the Dark, The Sky Father, The Lord of the Earth, and The Striker, and Protect, Provide, Preside from Ryan Mickler, and let's see, what else did I get into? Rugged, Refined, and Rakish by Tanner Guzy, and then Alison Armstrong's Stages of a Man's Life, which are Page, Knight, Prince, King, and Elder. And I looked at all those different archetypes and I said, what do these all say about men? They're all heroic archetypes that live within men. They live within all men. And this is not something that needs to be taught to men. It's something that's innate to us, but for some reason it's not coming out in men these days. And I put the question to women, what if there was some language of heroes, which is from Alison Armstrong, that you could learn to bring out the best in men? And so I asked, would you be willing to learn this language? And the women of the audience said yes. And I said, there's one catch. You have to take a vow. And this is from Alison Armstrong's book, The Queen's Code. The vow is, I will give up the right to castrate men forever. The point being, if a woman wants to bring out the best of any man in her life, she has to actively and forever give up the right to shame him, or she will never see the best in him. And she has to make that commitment. And that's a very, very tough thing for women to give up because, as I talked about in my 21 talk, shame is the power that women have over men. And it's a very, very difficult thing for many women to give up, and we've seen it spread all throughout society right now. It's in the media, it's in our language. Toxic masculinity is a shaming term. It's everywhere. It's the water that we're swimming in. And so that power is wielded primarily by women. And so I put it to the women, are you willing to give this up? It seemed to me that many of the women were, and which was very positive to see. But there's a lot more to that. So I asked that question, I put it to women, what if you have some responsibility for bringing out the best in men? And are you able to get what you want from life out of men at the point of a knife? And I think that message landed, at least I hope it did. So that's what I talked about. Cool.
I heard it went over pretty smooth, man. You were a smooth operator at 22.
Well, yeah, I had to, in my 21 talk, I knew that I could be a bit more strident and a bit more outspoken with the men. But as I was getting ready for that talk, I realized that taking a really like strident tone doesn't quite hit the same for women, because women do feel threatened, by men who speak in anger, even if it's righteous anger. And that's natural, because women have this instinctive fear of men's power, naturally, because men are quite powerful. It's just part of our genetic lineage. So it's like, well, what if I dial it back and speak a little softly, and that the words and the concepts speak for themselves? And I think that did. And I think they did. So I was happy to discover that technique, I guess you might say.
What did this linebacker talk about?
Yeah.
I wanted to give women some hope. I think as I look at our culture, our society, that's what I want to give men too, is hope. I have slowly realized how blessed I am. I married my high school sweetheart. When I married her, she was a virgin. We're still married. We've had a lot of kids, and we're happy. And the reality is that most people don't get that today. They have sexual pasts. They made mistakes. They've been divorced. Things have happened. And sometimes in this space, it's like you've missed the boat. You wore out. You don't have any more value. You can't ever put your life back together. And if that's true, we're kind of screwed, right? Because it's a whole generation that this has happened to. And so as I want to encourage women as much as I encourage men. I said this, I don't know if this is true. It's catchy though. It'll tweet. But I said that men are more hated than women, but women are more lied to than men. Yeah. And I don't know if it's totally true, but feminism is an attack on femininity, right? And they're trying to teach women to hate themselves as well. And they've bought into it. Us men are fighting it. That's why they're turning up the heat on things like toxic masculinity. It's so not natural. But so what I kind of got on the Twitter sphere, on people started to notice me when I had a tweet about single mothers. And I tell men to be very careful about dating single mothers. I caution them. And they need to ask, why is she a single mother? Is it because her husband died? Is it because she made some poor decisions? Or was he a creep? Was he a weirdo? Or was she a prostitute? Was she a whorish, right? Is she a bad person? And so I said that, and I guess the right people retweeted it. It was USA Today, Daily Wire, got Allie Beth Stuckey, thought I was a terrible person, And
you're doing something right.
Yeah, right. So it took off, and I got this email like a week or two ago that helped me figure out what to talk about at 22 from a woman that apologized for hating me. It was this long email like, I hated you, Pastor Foster. And she had been married to a man who was nuts and not well and abusive in a lot of different ways. And she eventually fled the relationship. The man killed himself because he wasn't of sound mind. And she becomes a Christian, this is like 2019, and then sees my tweet. And she said it felt like I was scaring all the good men away from her. And then she finally finds a guy that likes her, that invests in her, and she gets nervous because she knows she's a liability to him. And she starts to caution him more or less, and she realizes I'm right. I'm not right. Wow. She even knows that she's a problem, right? But they get married and they're happy and they're rebuilding. They're rebuilding their life. And the metaphor I think of often is those shows where you reclaim wood or metal, right? It's from something rubble that broke down, and you can make something beautiful from it. If we can't work with the people we have right now, what are we going to do? Because it's almost an entire generation. I mean, millennials on whole are so jacked up. You hear the boomers make fun of them, and Gen X's have kind of checked out. But they've had so many lies, whether it's student loans or whatever, thrown at them, that we have to be able to work with people that are not coming from ideal situations. Yep. So I wanted to encourage the women to rebuild from the rubble. I gave them 2 areas to work on, and they're both related to volume. One was attire, so you can think of modesty as sound, right? So music sounds good at a certain level. Turned down too much, then you can't hear it. If it's turned up too much, then it hurts your ears, right? Awesome. So modesty is the same thing. A woman shouldn't be ashamed of her feminine beauty. She should embrace it. She shouldn't be ashamed of her hips, her lips, right? Her breasts, none of that stuff. But she shouldn't also just let everything hang out, right? That will attract the wrong type of man. It will not it will not attract a quality man.
Absolutely.
Right. And
The opposite.
He'll say that's danger right there.
Yep.
It's just like blue hair says that's danger.
It's a predator symbol.
And nonetheless, that, and then to encourage them that you see this in irritating trad Twitter, right? Like TradCon Twitter makes you want to die. It's like pictures of some perfect woman and some perfect guy, like in the Swiss Alps, and this cute little baby.
Sundress.
This is all I want. That's what most people want, okay? Because it's a dream. But you see women, they grow their hair out and they put their dress on and they start, throwing these memes out or whatever. But their attitude is still really a feminist attitude. They're a loud woman, okay?
Bingo.
And then they think by putting it on, so then guys resent them and say, really deep down, you're still the whorish woman you were, right? And in a lot of cases, even if they're not sleeping around, they do have that attitude. So I wanted to tell them, like, I kind of rather you have short hair and wear jeans and have a beautiful feminine deference than the other way around, if we're gonna have to choose. So I just wanted to encourage them not to be Mrs. Wrong, right? If we're going to rebuild, we have to encourage women. We have to lay a path forward with where we're at. So that was what I focused on.
I love that. Prez?
Yeah, that was extremely well spoken. That's gonna be tough to follow up about recapping his entire speech. I did get to see some of it too. So my speech was a sequel to my keynote last year at the first 22 convention. So my speech at the first one, my keynote last year, was called Motherhood First, #Motherhood First. And that was about encouraging young women to put motherhood first rather than put motherhood last, which is what feminism tells them to do through covert, these manipulation and means. They lie to them, they kind of hide information, all this BS. Young women today basically make very uninformed decisions about building a family, relationships, all this stuff. They put college first, career first, advanced schooling first, and they put motherhood last, to the point that they freeze their eggs, try to unfreeze them, it fails very often, and they're crying, drinking cheap wine, eating cat food, petting cats. There's a meme where she's eating the cat food. She's like so delirious. She's like drinking like the box wine, that shitty dollar store wine.
Still better than eating cats.
Yeah, then the cats eat you and you die. I'm actually a cat. That's the whole thing, but this is a real thing. Women today are really taught to put. They'll know the feminists will never admit this, but if you actually give an honest look at what they teach young women through different social means, music, movies, TV, entertainment, school, propaganda, whatever, motherhood's last, right? Career first, school first, motherhood last. They'll never put in those terms, but that's what they teach them. Now, my speech this year was a follow-up to that. It was a direct sequel, and it was called Make Women Virgins Again. It has nothing to do with being a born-again virgin. It's just not like related to the talk. That's a whole separate issue. I mentioned it a little bit, but it's just not part of what it is. It's about revaluing virginity in America and in the West for women specifically, without even mentioning men. And I went into this point in particular because I've been wearing this hat for a few months, and I love this hat. It's my favorite new hat this year. Make Women Great Again is always going to be true to my heart, the closest to my heart. But Make Women Virgins Again enrages people to a degree I have never seen. Really, it is amazing. They love it or they hate it. It's not just enraging. That's not fair. It's super polarizing. Some people love it. Young guys in their 20s, when I'm out at bars with this hat, they fucking love it. They come up to me, high-fiving me, taking selfies of me. And boomers as well. Boomers as well love it. Older women, older men, when I go to these political conferences, they think it's hysterical. And in their day, it was a lot more normal. So it's interesting. Anyway, my talk was about, without even mentioning virginity for men. I was like, this is not even a thing, right? Let the Christian men take care of it. We'll talk about it later. That's fine to tackle later. I'm talking about female virginity in America. So revaluing that, because I think that's integral to how feminism has warped and changed American culture, and particularly American women. Millennial and Zoomer chicks give a fuck less about it. Pardon my French. They don't care. Even a lot of the Christian girls, they could care less. I have buddies in Orlando who are Christian. They go to these redneck bars with me sometimes, like Cowboys and stuff. The same Christian girls on Saturday night getting shit-faced, making out with guys, banging them. They go to church Sunday morning, right? They don't care at all. They lost their virginity at 14, 15, 16 years old. It means nothing to them, all right? I think this is biologically unsound and it's dangerous for women. I think femininity needs to be preserved, and the foundation of that is virginity and chastity. And young women today don't care, a lot, especially if they're secular. They could care less. It's virginity to them and retaining it beyond the age of 18 is like alien to them. You might as well be speaking Chinese. So this speech was designed to push back against that from a secular perspective, not a religious one. Like most of these guys are Christian. I'm not. I'm an atheist objectivist. This is about common sense femininity, American femininity for women, and revaluing something that they've completely lost. To the point, like Michael's saying, that these generations of millennials and Zoomers, a lot of this stuff is just alien to them. They've been lied to. They received compound lies. Their mothers were lied to, and their mothers then either fed them those lies indirectly or directly, or whatever the mechanisms were, however it went. So this is like the first time I think this has been pushed back against from a secular position, and I mean it. I want to live. I like living in a free country. I want to continue living in a free country. If women want to act like skanks and throw this shit out the window, so be it. But stop punting those things, those responsibilities, offloading them. Their welfare mechanisms and all these things. And I think it's self-destructive. Women acting like skanks, it's bad. And it's much better to preserve your virginity and your femininity if you can. But like Michael said too, like I talked about his speech from last year, actually, in my speech. And he basically said that, it's going to take decades to reverse and fix the damage feminism has done. It won't be done overnight. No matter how viral a video goes and how much impact we have, no matter how many people I enrage in the media and stuff with little bears and pigs and hats and stuff. Like real change on a macro level and a micro level, on a cultural level, on a personal level, real change takes a real time. Like not just months or even years, but decades, generations even. And that's why he's saying, I think it's what he's saying, Michael is saying is important, is that we have to learn how to deal with broken people. And at least if young girls see my speech about making women virgins again, because, some YouTuber like Curtis Connor or the media is, mad about it, who cares? At least they're exposed to the information. At least they can maybe make a better decision. 2%, 5%, 10% of them, right? The rest of them probably won't. They're going to ignore it. They're going to scream at it, downvote, get mad at me. Who cares? Some of them will listen, though, and that's at least a first step to moving things in the right direction, to living a better life and making better choices for yourself as a female, as a birthing person.
I want to put a question out to the panel, and Michael, you kind of touched on it. Sort of, what is the path back? What is the path back for women who have, let's say, fallen? Because a lot of women of the 3 successive generations, possibly 4 now, have absorbed and been born into feminist ideology, and they're discovering, Alexander, as you said, that they're not happy and they're looking for a way forward. And so they find the manosphere, they find 22 convention, 21 convention, all the men in this space, and they say that sounds like a path that I want to walk to find, let's say, a high-value man, or maybe they listen to Kevin Samuels or something like that. And this is a path towards a life that I want to lead. Be a mother, be a homemaker, be someone passing on values to the next generation. But I have this past, and I don't know this is the woman's perspective. I don't know what to do about it. Maybe a high notch count, or maybe tattoos, or maybe a child, or something like that. Something that can't be undone. And so I think a lot about this question, like, well, if a woman finds herself in that position with something that can't be undone, but wants to move in this direction and find a man from this community who wants to build a life with her, what's the path back for her? Is there one? Can we come up with one spontaneously here, or have you guys thought about this? Because that door needs to be open, because I feel like sometimes things can get a little, I don't know, I'll call it autistic in the men's space, where it's like you have to have the trad virgin born into the high values family, and it's like, okay, yeah, so there's like a dozen of those, like, sort of what about the rest of us? You know what I mean?
Michael's got a bunch at his church, man. He's collecting them.
What's church? Where's your church again? We'll take it offline.
I have some ideas on this.
Yeah, please. I'm very curious, because I think it's the sort of thing that women who want to move in this direction would potentially need to hear, so they feel that there's an open door to come and participate. And I just want to say one thing. I think there's going to be a need for discussion for forgiveness from men around it as well, which I'd like to touch on at some point. Men for offering forgiveness to women and understanding.
So my first thought is, number one, don't lie. And, women
1,000%.
basically, men tend to pump their numbers up. If they have a notch count, they try to brag to each other, they pump them up. Even in movies in the 90s, like American Pie, right? Guys would triple it, girls would basically divide it by 3, right? So if she had had sex with 24 guys, it becomes 8. 9 becomes 3, things like this. Don't lie. Don't live life of a fake reality. It is what it is. You're never going to undo it. History is history. You can't change it. If you try to warp it, you're just going to warp your own life and screw it up, and screw someone else up and abuse them. Don't lie. Lying is abuse, especially in a relationship. Number 2, have realistic expectations. This is one of the main cultural things that has happened to women, I think, directly from feminism. They have completely unrealistic expectations, particularly through online dating apps, but even in person. They're basically delusional. Like feminism has made women super entitled, and they've massively overvalued themselves in the sexual marketplace. Socrates, I think in particular, could speak to this as I read a whole book on the sexual marketplace. I mean, literally, it's on sale outside. $20, go buy it now. Yeah, they need to have realistic expectations. They don't. In other countries, they do. Like the woman, John Anthony, a pickup artist speaker, was talking about women in places like Poland, Eastern Europe, basically. Women there are in way better shape physically and psychologically. They expect men to act like men. They don't yell at them about toxic masculinity. They're very courteous. They're very respectful. I spent a month there in 2019 for 21 convention. And their expectations are more realistic, and they're from a better physical and psychological position. They haven't been warped by feminism. They hate communism in Poland, for example. They hate it. And they see a connection, most of them, to feminism and communism. So they don't have these unrealistic expectations, and women in America do. And this is where you see things on Instagram and social media and all this stuff. I don't need no man and blah, all this kind of crap, right? This really obnoxious garbage.
Hey, Anthony. You asked me to keep things moving around the panel and to cut men off if I needed to. No, just because you asked me to. So since you mentioned Socrates, I want to send it back over to Socrates and say what your thoughts on this are, like a path back or whatever you want to say, because I think it ties into your themes as well.
Yeah, I think you have to start with where you're at. You can want to be somewhere else, but you have to start wherever you're at. And my first talk at the 22 Con was literally that the dose determines the poison. That how much of feminism are you taking and ingesting, and it's a poison that doesn't kill immediately. It's a poison that actually has some benefit initially, but taken in consumption. It's terribly toxic and fatal. And so in many ways, I've been asked to kind of write an article about some of this, and I was kind of going over it in my head last night and thinking that in many ways, feminism is very much the fast food of ideologies. It's cheap, it's fast, and it's nourishing when you have need. And quite honestly, it's something you can enjoy. And it's a franchise that you can own immediately. Any woman can choose to identify with it right now. And as a franchise, it comes with a massive brand. I think these are all compelling reasons to kind of be allured towards feminism. And not only that, it comes with a sisterhood with it. It comes with the value of unearned virtues of being a victim. So you have all that. But ultimately, I think it's very unhealthy and unfulfilling. It's detrimental over time. And so how do you tell somebody who's been living on fast food culture of feminism, how do you get off of that? And it may be all at once. It may be parts and pieces, and I'm not saying you can't go back and have fast food, enjoy it from once in a while, but understand that, what you consume, you end up becoming. And I would start with where you're at and take an honest look. Are your results getting you where you want to go? What type of person have you become? In my talk last year, I looked, and I know Arthur did the same thing. I was amazed that he had some of the same images as well. Let's measure feminism. To sit down and say, is it truly improving women's lives? Has it been good for women? And really measure it. And particularly when you can look at the real toxic range of what's taken place, it could be very, very debilitating. So, I would start with, what are your consumption patterns? Be honest about it and sit down and say, very much like nutrition, maybe you need to make some dietary ideological changes.
Alexander?
This question of redemption comes up a lot. Since that is what the question is. I've been a bad girl. I can't be redeemed. This has a certain parallel to the men that are weak. I've been a beta bitch soy boy. Can I become a real man? It's are you willing to do the work? Are you willing to do the work? The problem for a lot of women, taking out the isms standpoint, is that what I see with a lot of women, you're not lovable. There's nothing about you that's worth loving. You're hyper narcissistic. You're entitled. You operate under a paradigm in which you cannot be judged or shamed for literally anything you do. Everyone has to agree with you. The man has to agree with you. But then you have all these expectations of wanting to be loved still. Women live to be loved. They want to be loved. But there's nothing about you that's lovable. So you need to take a very hard and probably painful look at your life and consider, what are my values, what are my choices, what are my beliefs, and what actually needs to change. I had a woman that contacted me recently where she was very upfront about like her past life. She's had a lot of sexual partners. She was a careerist. She has tattoos. She has all these things. I told her, like, tattoos. I don't overestimate tattoos. Tattoos, you can get tattoos, whatever. Piercings, I don't care. What you're realizing, though, is that you have devalued yourself. You've treated your body as an object. You've made poor choices of relationships. It's left you feeling empty. Like, you've actually recognized all this. Okay. Like, do you think you can change? And do you believe that if you do that, that a man will find you worth loving? I would never tell anyone, like, you're not going to be ever worth loving ever. You're useless. But you might have a lot of work to get there. Men have pasts as well. We're not all perfect beings. I'm not God. I'm not here to tell you that you're a whore and you are barred from heaven. How dare you? You're going straight to hell. That's not what we're here for. But I will tell you that, you fucked up a lot. And now you're going to have to be objective and reconsider how you lived your life. And you know what? Maybe my values are bullshit. Maybe my mom was kind of a bitch. Maybe how I've treated men and treated myself is the wrong way of living. But you have to be objective. This is the problem with a lot of women have, is they're very passive in this process. And this is kind of like the joke about the triathlon. It's like, oh, okay, like, so if I just put on like a long dress and post some picture about baking bread, like, now I'll get a good guy. I'm like, you're still the same bitch. You're just in a dress. You haven't changed.
Send tweet.
So that's my question to women when they contact me. Like, okay, like, I'm glad you're reaching out. Like, are you going to do the work? Yes or no? Yeah, that's on you.
Mike?
Sure. We don't understand marriage. Until you understand marriage, is marriage about fulfillment? Is it about self-fulfillment? If marriage is about self-fulfillment, your marriage is going to fail. Bottom line. Marriage has to have a telos. It has to have a purpose. It has to go and work towards something. It can't. If it's inward, it's going to fail. It's going to collapse in on itself, and it's got to have a purpose. This is the teaching of Christianity, but the ancients knew this, right? That a household was to raise up a legacy, raise up children, and to build something. And men and women stuck together. When a woman you ladies are going to lose your beauty, right? Men, you're going to lose your strength. It's going to happen. But when you invest your beauty and strength in each other early on, or as early as you can, it's replaced with strength of character, beauty of character eventually. A problem I have with the manosphere is you're all going to die. You're all going to die, right? We're all going to die. We have our views on these things are so short. And they're so small. So we're going to have to get to bigger questions eventually. But first, change the way we look at marriage, having the purpose. My marriage, I'm building a household for my grandkids, my great-grandkids. I'm invested. My wife's invested in me. It's bigger than both of us. Xenophon, he wrote in his book on household orders, very famous ancient book, and Xenophon, and it says, without my wife would die, and everyone swoons. But he meant it. Without my wife, I'd die. I'm a really bad mother. Not good at being a mother. And Em sucks at being a dad. Right? We need each other. My kids need mothers and fathers. And so part of the problem, if you're looking for a man to complete you, right, a man can't redeem you. Just like a woman, like as in a husband, there is a man that can redeem you. But as in a husband, he can't. And a woman, just like the men think the women are going to validate their manhood, right? Women think if they get a man, that's going to validate their womanhood. But you have to start to understand that what God gave you, a feminine nature, it's good. To Anthony's 2 points is basically responsibility and reality. Right? Take responsibility for what you did. In redemption, that's a big part. I sinned. What I did was wrong. I confess it. I admit it. I own up to it. I deserve what comes my way. So women definitely have to do that. And you could be so happy. It's like when I talk to the MGTOW guys. I'm like, you could be happy. I know you don't think you can be, but I've seen 40-somethings get married and be happy, right? And have a wonderful time. And you do have to change your expectations to not just fit your reality, but the reality. It's not like, hey, you had your chance to get a top-notch guy, but you screwed around in your youth, right? We all get old, right? We all wear down. And I'm going to die next to my wife, right? Hopefully not in a car. Because Sock said every once in a while, you need to flirt with feminism. And we went on a trip
last year, and I let her drive for a little bit. So.
Oh man, little junk food. Let her drive. All right.
Well, okay, I'll take that from there. Wow. Sure, I'll just take on that one. No, I mean, what I'm going to say probably isn't going to be popular, and I don't expect it to be, and it's a very unpopular word, and the word is accountability. And, feminism said for a very long time that women wanted to be equal to men. It's like, okay, the way that men determine equality with each other is through accountability. If a man will not be accountable, he will not stand shoulder to shoulder with other men. The price of your man card is accountability. That's just a known thing. A man who is not accountable does not get to be part of the circle. So if women want to be equal to men, they have to take on the burden of men, which is accountability. If you want to truly be equal, women do not like accountability, and in my observation, they do almost anything they can to avoid accountability. If you listen to Kevin Samuels, he talks about sign language, shame, insults, guilt, and the need to be right. As he tries to make it clear to them that, the life choices, the women that call into them, the ones that they've made, are not serving them. They're not getting the men in their life that they want. And so when he tries to explain to them this is as a result of your choices, they resort to shame, insults, guilt, and the need to be right, all in the process of avoiding accountability. And so if women want to come into true equality with men, not political equality, not economic equality, but true shoulder-to-shoulder divine equality with men, there will be a process of accountability. And many of the men in here know that I speak about the great reconciliation. And I think sometimes I may do myself a disservice in talking about it, in that I can almost accidentally, though not intentionally, accidentally frame it as this magical coming together process. And I don't believe that. I don't believe it'll be magical at all, one happy day where we all wake up and everything's happy and fine. No, there's going to be a process of accountability, and the problem is that accountability burns. Accountability is pain. No one wants to experience accountability. And the real challenging thing will be women will have to go through a process of accountability. Individual women, and I think women collectively, for the things that they have done and the choices that they have made, whether they did it under deception or not. And the real challenge for us as men will be holding women as they go through that process. We will have to be strong enough to support women as they go through the process of accountability and feel the consequences of their choices. And that's going to be absolutely brutal, but it's going to be absolutely wonderful and beautiful by the end, because it will bring men and women closer together. So in the hope that, taking the long view, we never have to make this mistake again, this generational error we've made for the past 60 years, that maybe this is the lesson that humanity needs to learn, that some things can't be undone. And so that's my hope for the long term, that as we mutually go through this process of accountability, supporting each other in that humanity can learn the lessons that it needs to learn. So that's my response to this.
Well said.
Thank
Very
you.
well said.
Thank you, guys. We have just a few minutes left, and so for anyone who wants to jump in, sort of popcorn style, do you have any advice to women that are listening right now, or potentially also men with girlfriends or wives that they want to try and explain some of these concepts to, how to begin reaching across, what we might say the aisle, and inviting more women into this process? Anyone who wants to jump in?
I got a quick thing, actually. It's not from me. It's from Jennifer Molesky, speaker.
Sure.
Spoke at 22 Convention. I had to rearrange the schedule a little bit. That was on me. And she had to then leave on an airplane. That's why she's not here right now. She was otherwise going to be on this panel. She actually wanted me to tell you guys on her behalf that feminism is stupid and don't trust the government. I promised her I would do that, so I got to do that. So she's here in spirit. Yeah. That's all from Jennifer.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess social media is very dangerous for women in a way. It's like pornography, how it's especially emasculating for men. Yeah. Social media inflates a woman's self-estimation, also her expectations. It's, I would say, I do tell guys, check out their social media, their Instagram, especially if you find the burner account that their parents don't know about, and see what they're posting. I would say it's not good. It's not good at all. Women want to compete with each other naturally. You see this even in the church with homeschool moms, right? They're competing through their kids. Mm-hmm. But Instagram, that's one thing that I would say, back off on that. That's a good step right there. Mm-hmm. And even if it's the trad account stuff, it's just, I hate the word LARPing, but my goodness, what else is it?
There's a lot of that.
That's one practical step.
Cool. Alexander?
For the young women that contact me, I have a fairly objective criteria. It's not dissimilar to what I give young men, but you have to set some standards for yourself. Because if you hold yourself to standards, by default, the level of your life, the vibration of your life will rise. The thing I often suggest, obviously, is like your physical health, your personal health. Take care of that. The people that you have relationships with, are those ascendant or descending relationships? Is it making you better or worse? The way you treat people. One of the things that a lot of young women, or just women in general, lack today is that they're not nurturing. They don't know how to be graceful. They've adopted this sort of, which is essentially like a shitty male version of dealing with people, where it's very brassy, it's very ballsy, it's very abrasive. And there might be certain environments that works in, but overall, you're just an unpleasant woman. Nobody likes you. Nobody wants to be around you. You're relying upon title and authority to coerce people. So have standards for how you treat people. Like actually practice being kind. Like develop that quality in yourself. And then beyond that, like in regards to like relationships with men, try to actually apply some logic to it. Like this is like the maturation process of like feminine wisdom. If you actually are going to be a woman and be wise, you need to learn how to balance intuition and feeling with logic and reason. Like that actually has to happen. Like that, not everything you feel is valid. Not every emotion needs to be satisfied. That when you look at someone or you're looking at a man, like, okay, let me check my expectations a little bit about how this is going to proceed. I mean, this all comes with time. This is obviously exponential. This isn't, like as we've been saying, it's not done in a day. But this makes you more mature. And if you are looking at your future and you're a young lady, it's like, okay, like you're setting yourself up on the right path, on a right-hand path. If you want to give into hedonism and listen to your stupid, shitty friends and disregard your personal health and make decisions that are disrespectful to you, you're going to get what you're going to get. Yeah, and then you're going to be that girl that's really upset when she feels like she's being shamed and beat on, but you know what? You probably earned it.
Yeah. Sock, you got about 90 seconds.
90 seconds. I think women need to clean their own house first and not focus on the patriarchy. I think that in many cases, feminism is nothing more than a form of gender bigotry, and that when you partake in it, you're a bigot. When you enable bigotry, you're enabling bigotry. And we need to view it as such. And ladies, you need to clean house and speak up. When you see it, you need to silence that. You need to call attention to it and shine a light on it. Men are watching.
Brilliant. And to that, I would just add courage. It's okay to be wrong. It has never been more okay to be wrong. So I want to thank you guys for sitting on this panel. Socrates, Alexander, Michael, Mr. President, Sir, Will Spencer. If anyone has, you got about 50 seconds left. If anyone got something burning they want to say.
Yeah, I had a little something, unless you want to go, Michael. Yeah, so I said a tweet when the New York Post was fighting with us in 2020 about Make Women Great Again, launching it. And I was kind of messing around, but I realized later there was merit to it. And I said in a tweet, all caps, just kind of yelling late at night right on Twitter, reclaim your stolen femininity, become great again. And they quoted that like on the website. They actually like embedded it. I was like, that's interesting. And so it kind of made me think more about it. And so when we're talking about feminism, lie to women, these are lies, blue pill lies, whatever, you should also think about it that they robbed you. They stole your femininity from you, especially for young women. It wasn't just that you got lied and you accepted the lie and you're responsible for that part, and they're responsible for lying to you. That's like abusive and stupid. But they also robbed you. They stole from you. Really, like they stole from you psychologically and culturally and spiritually, I would say. And that's messed up. And that's just another way to look at it that I think is useful beyond just you were lied to. They robbed you, straight up.
Thanks, gentlemen. This is still on. This is Will Spencer from the Renaissance of Men, live in Orlando, Florida with the 21 Summit 2021 with Socrates, Alexander Cortez, Pastor Michael Foster, and President Anthony Dream Johnson, the State of Women and Femininity. Thanks so much for watching.
Welcome back to the 21 Convention Second Patriarch Edition, live in Orlando, Florida.
Welcome to the 22 Convention.
Welcome back to the 21 Convention 2020 of Orlando, Florida, being held for the first time ever at our very first and inaugural 21 Summit event. Welcome to 21 Summit in Orlando, Florida.
Well, here we go. We risked again with the 22 convention, the Patriarch and 21 convention, all 3 stages together in one event.
Not only did we sit down and say we're going to come together and meet in mass, but we're going to take it a step further. We are going to dare have a conversation about the sexes openly, honestly, and engage the women that.
Like, I am amazed at how well this went. We did a brand new event, we did the second Patriarch, and we did the main event for the 19th time.
It's so much more than sitting in an audience watching a man on a stage. The conversations in the hallways, the connections that people make, the challenging, the collaborations.
And that's what we need. It all starts with men. And it's not just men. That's what I like about this. You know, we don't want to like overreact to feminism and then hate women. That's not it. This is about men getting their act together, doing what they're made to do.
You had meals, you had to run security, you had to run travel plans, you had to ensure people were where they needed to be. 3 stages, cameras everywhere, and it was pulled off with flawless execution.
It's evolved so much. I really appreciate how Anthony has allowed you speakers to evolve and to grow and to share that and to encourage that with all the other men here. To hear so much talk on family and fatherhood, there's more depth, there's more room for who they could be.
Is the word patriarchy or patriarch offensive to you in any way?
Not to me personally.
Okay.
Not at all. It's something that I cherish it. I love it. I grew up wanting it.
Cherish the patriarchy.
I do.
In mansplaining news, a 3-day conference for women led by men hopes to make women great again.
But women need to be taught how to be great again.
Oh,
Not my words.
We do. Like how to land a husband, how to lose weight, how to pop out a bunch of kids.
Why do men think they need to fix the problems of women?
Well, it says the world's ultimate event for women.
In Orlando, Florida, that's going to be the scene of the crime. It's mansplaining palooza. You say no to the toxic bullying feminist dogma.
Patriarchy is the future.
It's good to see it in person. Until I got here and saw it, and you can see the people in the audience, you see the men that are here committed to listening. I mean, it's just changed my idea of what the conference is. The professionalism, the staff, the way everything is organized. It's given me a different perspective about this particular idea, and I'm ready to put some more fire into it.
Welcome to Dream World, ladies and gentlemen.